Synopsis. The love between two boys blossoms as they are forced to choose between duty and death. Because of his responsibilities, Nuengdiao had no choice but to be flawless. As the heir to a prestigious family, he had to stand above everyone else. Burdened by the weight his father left behind after his death, Nuengdiao was forced to grow up alone. He had no friends, no one by his side, no one who truly understood him, and no one to love. Until one day, he met Palm, the son of the family's driver. Opening chapter. I'll definitely see you this time. Dad had said those words one night. It was raining harder than Nuengdiao had ever seen before. He could still remember that night perfectly. There had been something unwavering in his father's gaze, enough to make the young boy a little suspicious. He only knew that his father was always busy. There was only one day each year when they met, his birthday. He was 10 years old, and no matter how busy his father was, he always came home to celebrate with him. It was the one time they could sit together, talk, and be happy. I knew you were coming. As his father wrapped him in a warm embrace, Nuengdiao felt happier than ever. Dressed in his bright little suit, he ran straight into his father's arms, knowing their time together would always be far too short. His father always woke before he did and left before Nuengdiao opened his eyes. His mother had told him that Dad worked hard to earn enough money to build him a big house and buy him a big car. You have to trust me. His father lowered his head and gently kissed his forehead goodnight. Nuengdiao wanted him to finish the bedtime story. His father had been telling him about a king who had to protect his kingdom from an evil dragon. The dragon's head could never be allowed to return because it would bring harm to the people the king treasured most. I love you more than anyone else in the world, Nuengdiao. As they pulled apart, Nuengdiao felt something wet on his father's face. Seeing tears in his eyes made his heart tremble. He didn't want to see his father like this. Don't cry. Nuengdiao loves you too. The little boy reached up and wiped away his father's tears with his hands. Nuengdiao doesn't need you to spend lots of time with me, as long as you don't cry. I heard you. His father wiped away his tears, as though he had finally made up his mind. Do you remember how to play hide and seek? You count from 1 to 10 and don't open your eyes. Nuengdiao played that game with his father every birthday. When he opened his eyes, there was always an unexpectedly large present waiting for him. This time, you have to stay quiet while you count. Count in your head. Don't say the numbers out loud. Will you hear me counting? Nuengdiao asked in confusion. His father only smiled faintly, though worry filled his eyes. Thunder rumbled across the sky. Peepob held his son tightly. Nung, you have to trust Dad. His voice shook as though he was about to cry. Don't let anyone know you're here. Listen to me. No matter what happens, you must keep your eyes closed, keep your mouth shut, and keep counting until 21. Do you understand? Yes. The boy believed every word his father said without the slightest doubt. So, are you going to count from 1 to 21? His father smiled and gently ruffled his hair. Nuengdiao heard the sound of tires outside the house. The rain continued to pour. Peepob hugged him so tightly that it became difficult to breathe. For some reason, Nuengdiao had to fight back his own tears. I love you. I love you more than anyone else in the world. His father cried again. This time, it was Nuengdiao who comforted him. I love you more than anyone else in the world too. That wasn't a lie. His father carried him into the dressing room. 10 wardrobes stood in a row. Peepob opened the deepest one and gently placed his son inside the narrow space. Nuengdiao could barely move. His father's hand softly stroked his head. Don't be afraid. After we're done playing hide and seek, I'll come tuck you into bed, okay? He smiled gently. Nuengdiao didn't fully understand, but when his father nodded, he obediently began counting. 1, 2, 3. His father quietly closed the wardrobe door. Nuengdiao continued counting softly in his throat until silence surrounded him. Keeping his eyes tightly shut, he did exactly as he had been told. He wouldn't let anyone know he was there. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He focused on reaching the end so he could come out and look for his father. But outside the wardrobe, he heard voices. His father's angry shouting. People arguing. The violent crash of things being knocked over. Something shattered. Then, bang. A gunshot echoed through the house. It was the last sound Nuengdiao ever heard from his father. In that moment, he understood that they would never play together again. Chapter 1. Or Poland. It's beautiful there. Nuengdiao sat with his chin propped on his hand, staring dejectedly at the classroom clock. His classmates argued around him, but he barely paid any attention. The break after second period was already over, yet the teacher for third period still hadn't arrived. Disneyland, don't you think? Why not Poland? Isn't it interesting? Let's do a little research. Don't just go to an amusement park or look at nature. The teenager continued to ignore his friend's conversation. What about you, Nuengdiao? What? He only gave a brief response because he hadn't been part of the discussion in the first place. Looking around, he saw his three friends still arguing over where to spend their summer holiday, unable to reach a decision. Where are you going? One of them asked. It was nothing unusual, yet it made him sigh. He couldn't remember how many times he'd answered the same question. Home. Why stay home? Aren't you rich? Why not go on holiday? My mom won't let me go anywhere. Nuengdiao answered quietly. He didn't like being questioned like this, so mentioning his mother usually ended the conversation. Otherwise, they would keep asking why he stayed home and why he never went anywhere. Ever since his father died on his 10th birthday, his mother had raised him like a flower in a greenhouse. Being the family's sole heir was both a great blessing and a terrible curse. But Chopper gets to go. The words caught his attention. Chopper was Supakit's son, Nuengdiao's cousin. Although they were relatives, they had grown up very differently. As the main heir, Nuengdiao would one day inherit everything his parents had built. Chopper, on the other hand, was only his uncle's son. His uncle worked alongside Nuengdiao's mother, but Nuengdiao had never fully trusted him. Chopper is Chopper. Me. He said it as he stood and picked up his bag. 10 minutes had already passed, and the teacher still hadn't arrived. Even if it became 11, no one was going to stop him. I'm skipping class. See you this afternoon. Pum immediately stopped him. Out of everyone, Pum was probably the one who talked to him the most. Hey, I fixed it. Are you going to ask me to sign it? Nuengdiao fell silent. An indescribable emotion welled up inside him. When can I tell you? Thanks, boss. The others quickly went back to their lively discussion. He slung his bag over his shoulder and left to find a quiet place where he could be alone. There was a knock on the open door. The soft sound echoed through the small room connected to the school's main auditorium. It was normally used to store musical instruments and manage the lighting and sound systems for school events. Naturally, it had become the music club's room. Skipping class on the first day, the person cleaning the instruments turned at the sound of his voice. Nuengdiao walked in and looked around. This hidden room behind the auditorium was known only to a handful of people. Like the shadows behind a stage, it was where the prince could bury himself away from the world. Mind if I stay? He set his bag down. As though pulled by an invisible force, he walked straight to the piano in the corner. The other person was Ben. Like Nuengdiao, he'd been part of the music club since entering high school. They were both a little eccentric, and everyone in the club respected each other's private space. No outsiders were allowed inside. It's fine if it's you, Ben replied. Nuengdiao knew what he meant. Everything had a price. Sometimes, the reward was worth paying it. He sat at the piano, his mind completely blank, wanting only to lose himself in a familiar melody. His fingers rested on middle C before drifting across the keys. This was where he felt the freest. Here, everyone experienced art through sound alone, ignoring the darkness around them and becoming immersed in the music. Last Christmas, Ben spoke, and Nuengdiao turned toward him. Last Christmas. It's the song you played during Christmas your first year. How did you know? Nuengdiao looked genuinely surprised. He had performed it backstage. Everyone believed the music had come from a recording. No one knew he had actually played it live. I know because this C key sounds a little strange. It doesn't press all the way down. It's slightly out of tune, not badly though. Is that your style? Ben continued wiping the drums without looking back, yet somehow seemed to know exactly what Nuengdiao was thinking. Nuengdiao had already asked his piano teacher to repair it, but recently everything had become too chaotic. Play it again. He pressed the opening note. He had played the piece so many times that he barely needed the sheet music anymore. It told the story of someone falling in love under unusual circumstances and choosing to give their heart to a passerby. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart. But the very next day, you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. You're a senior now. How was your first day? Everything okay? Those were the first words he heard after sitting down at the dinner table. The long dining table could seat 10 people, but tonight only his mother and uncle were there. It was fine. He answered casually, pretending nothing had happened. At the same time, both his hands unconsciously gripped his school bag. After skipping class and hiding in the music room, he had stayed there longer than intended. When he finally returned to the classroom, he found the notebook he'd left under his desk slashed into pieces. Then, when he opened his locker, he discovered someone had stuffed clay into the lock. It had taken quite a while to find a mechanic to fix it. But Chanin said you didn't look well. His mother reached across the table and gently took his hand. After his father's death, she had stepped into his place, taking over the family's real estate company and guiding it through one crisis after another. Whether above ground or below it, she handled everything. After that stormy night years ago, she never again tucked him into bed or told him bedtime stories. Not once. Uncle Chanin worries too much. Nuengdiao. His mother sighed deeply before looking away. Life wasn't difficult because of money. It was difficult because not everyone wanted to live inside a gilded prison. Chanin was worried, so he told me. Did you fight with your classmates? Did someone hurt you? Tell me, and I'll speak to the headmaster. Nuengdiao simply shook his head. He knew why people hated him. His mother had reclaimed land near the school for a new development. The residents had protested, hanging banners all along the road. To them, Nuengdiao was simply the son of someone who had trampled on the poor. Mrs. Tanya. A quiet voice interrupted them. Nuengdiao didn't even need to turn around to know it was Chanin, the driver who took him to school every day. He glanced at the older man with a hardened expression, though there was nothing he could really do. At least Chanin had been the one who always rescued him whenever the pressure threatened to suffocate him. It's time. Chanin spoke quietly. His mother simply nodded. Then Chanin stepped aside to reveal someone standing behind him. This is Palm, my son. He introduced the newcomer. Hello, Tanya. Hello, Nuengdiao. The young man greeted them awkwardly with a respectful "why." Palm resembled a younger version of Chanin, though his skin was much fairer. His sharp jawline and bright eyes made him unexpectedly handsome. After greeting them, he lowered his hands and bowed politely. Nuengdiao studied him in silence. Palm lived with his uncle in the countryside, Chanin explained. But my brother recently passed away, so I brought him here for now. If I find somewhere else for him to stay, I'll move him out. Despite being Tanya's trusted right-hand man, Chanin had never taken advantage of her kindness. Nuengdiao had always regarded him more as family than as an employee. Chanin never sought praise or recognition for everything he had done. No need to worry about that, Tanya said warmly. The house is huge. There are plenty of empty rooms. Nuengdiao remained silent, studying the newcomer with curiosity. Palm looked up for a brief moment. Their eyes met. Almost immediately, Palm lowered his gaze again. I'm sorry. Nuengdiao turned toward Chanin. Just because Palm had nowhere to stay? Chanin's son was practically an adult. Why bring him here now? If given the choice, wouldn't any parent want to keep their child away from this dangerous world filled with the smell of gunpowder? How old are you? Tanya asked. 19. It was the first time Nuengdiao had really heard Palm's voice. It was quiet, rough around the edges, yet unexpectedly firm. So you're in your first year of university? No, Tanya. My uncle had cancer. Palm took a year off school to take care of him. He's only just returned to finish his final year of high school. So he's about the same age as Nuengdiao then. When Nuengdiao was 17, Palm was already 18. Palm nodded politely. That's perfect. The two of you can be friends. Nuengdiao paused with his chopsticks halfway to his mouth. He looked at Palm. Palm quietly returned his gaze before lowering his eyes again. Behind that humble, obedient appearance, what kind of person was he really? Palm, will you take care of Nuengdiao? Yes. After that, Palm and Chanin excused themselves. Nuengdiao remained seated, thoroughly confused. What did someone as quiet and submissive as Palm truly mean by that answer? He smiled faintly. Friends? Did anyone in this world really think of him as a friend? Palm behaved more like a servant than a guest, even though Tanya had specifically asked him to become friends with her son. Whenever Nuengdiao walked past him, Palm lowered his eyes. Whenever he accompanied him somewhere, he quietly followed behind. He was so silent that it almost felt as though he didn't exist. At first, Nuengdiao paid little attention. But the longer he watched Palm, the more uncomfortable he became. Palm didn't behave like a person. He behaved like a machine. Hey! Nuengdiao casually called out to him. He had been watching television when he heard water running outside. Stepping into the driveway, he found Palm washing one of the family cars. For some reason, He felt compelled to talk to him. Hello, Kunoo. My name is Nuengdiao. Yes, Kunoo Nuengdiao. Palm hurriedly turned off the hose before standing straight with his head lowered and his hands tightly clasped together. Do you need me to do anything? Yes. Palm immediately lifted his head, waiting for instructions. But the moment Nuengdiao looked directly at him, he lowered his gaze again. Look at me. What? I said look up. Palm hesitated before finally obeying. It wasn't that he lacked confidence. For some reason, he simply couldn't meet other people's eyes. When you're talking to someone, look them in the eyes. Don't keep staring at the ground. I don't like it. Palm nodded obediently. A second later, his eyes drifted downward again. Nuengdiao sighed. Where did you live before? Phuwin. In town. No. In the countryside. Palm answered politely. Nuengdiao crossed his arms and looked him over from head to toe. What did your uncle do there? He made papaya salad. So you know how to make it? Not really. Most of the time, I just ran errands. Palm bent his head instinctively before remembering and looking back up. Was it difficult moving here? Being somewhere new? Nuengdiao pretended to sound concerned, though he was really trying to learn more about Chanin's family. It's fine. My uncle passed away, so there's no one left there. Nuengdiao nodded. Palm's answers were perfectly reasonable. He didn't seem to be lying. What about your friends? Not many. After school, I always had to help my uncle prepare the papaya, so I didn't have much time to spend with anyone. Silence settled between them. Nuengdiao couldn't think of anything else to ask. Palm was ordinary, almost painfully ordinary. Yet Nuengdiao couldn't shake the feeling that Chanin's son was hiding something. His mother trusted Chanin completely. There was no way she would ignore Chanin's own child. At the very least, Palm would now have the chance to finish school and live a better life than most of his relatives. The real question was, did his mother truly want Palm to become his friend? Why Palm? The question lingered in his mind. He watched through the window as Palm moved from one car to another, washing each one carefully. Palm was wearing the uniform of a public high school far from here. Nuengdiao shook his head, forcing the thought away. After all, what was he really thinking? Chapter 2. Kunoo, how was the new semester? Chanin, the family driver, asked. Nuengdiao quietly recalled the images flashing through his mind. The lost briefcase, the locker covered in ink stains and curses, the notebook thrown into the rubbish, and the leaflets scattered across the school with the words "Son of the Murderer" scrawled across them in red. Just like always. He replied, staring absent-mindedly out the window. Outside, signs and banners protested the acquisition of the market land. In truth, his mother wasn't wrong. The lease had expired, and the landowner had gladly sold the property to the Kayadakolmati family so they could build a new department store. But that also meant reclaiming the land where hundreds of people lived. Lost in thought, he realized they had reached the school gate. Everyone was staring at the car. I've told you many times. Don't let mother know about what's happening at school. She already has enough headaches. I can't give her any more trouble. Nuengdiao looked away, catching the driver's expression in the rearview mirror. Chanin's eyes were filled with conflicting emotions as he took a deep breath. The brake cable on yesterday's car was cut. The quiet confession came from the front seat. Nuengdiao was only slightly surprised. In fact, he had expected something like this. One by one, the scattered pieces were beginning to fit together. In this world, there was no such thing as coincidence. I've had the feeling that someone's always watching us. I only went to the bathroom for a moment. When I came back, the car was already like that. His voice remained calm. Although Nuengdiao wasn't shocked, he still felt uneasy. It wasn't the first time someone had played a prank on him, but this had gone too far. I think someone at the school tipped off security. But when they investigated, they found nothing. Only students and administrators. There weren't any cameras? No, Chanin answered. The parking area isn't covered. The cameras only monitor the entrances and exits. I've already asked the school to install more cameras there. How's mother? Someone followed Kintanya's car yesterday, but that's happened many times before. We still don't know who did it. His family was always surrounded by danger. Because the business wasn't entirely clean, his mother was constantly under scrutiny from government and security agencies. On top of that, the truth behind his father's case still hadn't been uncovered. Anything else? I want you to be more careful. The situation is becoming more and more unsettling. Chanin's voice grew noticeably heavier. Nuengdiao understood. Protecting one person was difficult enough, But with hundreds of students at the school, taking precautions wasn't easy. Kantanya wants you to resume your self-defense lessons every 7th day. Nuengdiao fell silent. Shortly after his father died, his mother had hired an instructor to teach him practical self-defense. It focused on surviving real-life situations rather than competition. But after entering year 3, his studies became more demanding, so he had taken a break. Okay. Kantanya also said Palm should train with you. He's already learned before, so it'll be more convenient. I don't know exactly what she means. Nuengdiao met Chainen's eyes in the rearview mirror. Whatever everyone decides. The car stopped at the drop-off area. Nuengdiao picked up his briefcase and stepped out. There was still some time before classes began. Maybe he should speak with the school administration about installing more cameras. If they found the person responsible, perhaps everything would finally make sense. Nuengdiao. What's wrong, Ben? The president of the music club laughed as he patted Nuengdiao on the shoulder. Are you coming to the clubroom today? There's something I want to talk to you about. What is it? A dance club near the school contacted me. They're looking for someone who can play the piano. I thought you might be interested. Want to give it a try? Why me? Because you're the only one at school who can play the piano. Nuengdiao was about to answer when he noticed his cousin standing in a distant corner. At first, he wanted to wave him over, but he stopped. Chopper must have been standing there for quite a while, watching the two of them talk. If there's anything else, just send me the details through line. I'll ask my mom. If not, I'll get going. Nuengdiao held out his QR code for Ben to scan. Chopper frowned. Nuengdiao hoped he was only imagining things. The next exercise is partner practice. The 7th self-defense lesson began that afternoon. Chainen had been right. Palm had exceptional physical ability. From the very first lesson, the instructor had praised him repeatedly. He mastered every basic technique in an incredibly short time. Please guide me. Chainen's son spoke softly. Nuengdiao and Palm faced each other while the instructor explained that they would take turns attacking. There would naturally be some rough contact during practice. Palm's expression remained as unreadable as ever, making Nuengdiao uneasy. His competitive spirit flared. He wanted to tear away the humble shell Palm hid behind. He wanted to know the truth. Ready. Nuengdiao steadied himself. The moment the exercise began, Palm moved immediately. Nuengdiao intended to block him, but instead kicked at Palm's leg, making him stumble. It was useless. Palm countered instantly, locking him down so tightly that he couldn't move. I'm sorry. Palm whispered. Nuengdiao laughed softly. If his mother saw him like this, she'd probably be disappointed. Stop. At the instructor's command, Palm immediately released him and reached down to help him up. Nuengdiao took a deep breath, reminding himself that he was the heir to everything his parents had built for the Kaidakulmati family. Again, this time, Palm was the one on defense. Nuengdiao barely managed to grab for his shirt before Palm blocked the attempt, swept his leg, and threw him off balance. Before he could hit the ground, Palm caught him with one arm. Nuengdiao ended up cradled against Palm's chest. Sorry. They were standing so close that Nuengdiao noticed Palm swallowing nervously. Their faces were only inches apart. Stop apologizing. Next time I'll kill you. He sighed in frustration. He was tired of Palm's endless respect. Tired of the constant apologies. Yes, Kunoo. Nuengdiao. Yes. Kunoo Nuengdiao. Nuengdiao. Not Kunoo Nuengdiao. Looking at the younger version of Chainen somehow made it even more amusing. His competitive instincts only burned brighter. No, I still have to call you master. The instructor signaled them to separate. This time, Nuengdiao wasn't interested in the training itself. Palm had become his challenge. At first glance, he knew Palm was hiding something. That only made him more determined to expose it. Watch who's coming. Be careful, okay? Like his mother, Palm spoke with an easy smile. Yet somehow, it still felt like pressure. Begin. Nuengdiao attacked first. This time, he was prepared. He swept his leg toward Palm. Originally, he only wanted to knock him down once, but Palm was right in front of him. Nuengdiao shifted his footing, spun around, and managed to drag Palm down with his right arm. Ah! Palm looked as though he was about to apologize again. Nuengdiao stopped him. What are you going to call me? Holding Palm beneath him, Nuengdiao stared into his face. Even though Palm's strength far surpassed his own, and he could easily reverse the situation in a real fight, Nuengdiao refused to lose this battle of words. Kunoo Nuengdiao. I'm giving you one last chance. Time passed slowly. Nuengdiao smiled. For once, he was winning. After nearly a minute, the person pinned beneath him finally gave in. Nuengdiao. Pom had been here for 1 week. On the surface, Nuengdiao's life remained as calm as a still ocean. Beneath it, however, a storm was brewing. The pressure and danger around him only continued to grow. Someone had scattered triangular nails beside the car's tires. The students responsible were questioned, but in the end, they only received warnings. His mother also came home less and less. She was becoming more like his father. They only spoke once a day, and every day she stayed out longer than before. Something was threatening them. He just didn't know what. The uncertainty left the teenager anxious about everything around him. Unable to sleep, Nuengdiao stepped outside for some fresh air. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Then he heard someone swimming. The rhythmic splashing echoed through the quiet night, accompanied by steady breathing. He glanced at the clock. 2 a.m. Nuengdiao walked downstairs, crossed the hall, and opened the pool door. Kunoo, Nuengdiao. He sat on the edge of the pool with a smug grin. The swimmer was Pom. Apparently, he hadn't asked anyone's permission. I just found out Mother lets you use this pool. His sudden voice startled Pom. For a brief moment, light and shadow alternated across Pom's body. His broad shoulders, toned arms, defined abs, and muscular build belonged to someone who trained regularly. A towel was wrapped around his waist. His eyes were filled with panic. What? Nothing. You don't know? I'm sorry. It won't happen again. Pom's flustered reaction made Nuengdiao smile in satisfaction. He had always believed Pom wasn't someone who simply bowed his head and accepted everything. This Pom had spirit, a stubbornness that others lacked. No driver's son would secretly swim in a private pool in the middle of the night. Chanin clearly hadn't raised the obedient son everyone imagined. If saying sorry solved everything, what would laws be for? Pom climbed out and sat beside him. He turned slightly away, avoiding eye contact. If you call me Kunoo one more time, I'll bring Uncle Chanin here right now. Do you want that? I'm sorry. Nuengdiao. What? Sorry, Nuengdiao. Nuengdiao can tell me to do anything. Just don't tell my dad. If I deserve punishment, I'll accept it myself. But don't you sleep in the same room as your father? Why didn't he know you were out? Pom hesitated. Their eyes met. Sports might not be Nuengdiao's strength. Reasoning was different. My dad. He fell asleep so. Please don't tell anyone. His voice turned hoarse. Beneath all his humility was the stubborn pride Nuengdiao disliked. Even now, Pom held his head high in quiet defiance. Will you do anything I ask? Nuengdiao smiled. What could be more entertaining than this? If you consider yourself a servant, then obey every order I give you. If you do, I won't tell anyone about tonight. He added with mock generosity. Oh, and I'll even allow you to use the pool. Yes. Really? Yes. Pom answered in his deep voice. I'm only a driver's son. I'm poor. As long as it doesn't involve money, I'll do it. Victory tasted sweet. Nuengdiao still disliked hearing the words Kunoo, but now wasn't the time to argue about that. A servant belongs to your family. I'm not your mother's servant, and I'm not your father's servant. What do you want? Pom looked up at him. Panic flickered in his eyes. This Friday, I want to skip school. Pom remained silent. At 8 a.m, wait for me at gate 6. I'll climb over the fence. Then come back at 3 p.m. and help me get back inside. Nuengdiao noticed Pom swallow hard. No one can know about this except the two of us. But, Kunoo, that's dangerous. Things haven't been safe lately, and I don't want to disobey Cantanya's orders. You're not disobeying my mother's orders. Didn't she tell you to take care of me? Then do exactly that. Follow me and keep me safe. But, Kunoo, did you already forget what you promised? Nuengdiao's expression hardened as he lowered his voice and stared directly at him. Yes. Pom finally surrendered. So I'll be waiting at gate 6 at 8 o'clock. Chapter 3. 1, 2, 3. Nuengdiao counted, then squeezed through a narrow gap in the fence near the school's rarely used side gate. As soon as he landed, he fell into the other boy's arms. The close proximity and the soft sound of Pom's breathing made him tense for a moment. Pom held Nuengdiao just firmly enough before gently setting him back on his feet. The two looked at each other for a moment before Pom finally let go. Are you okay at school? Nobody cares. Today's Father's Day. Nuengdiao replied, turning to glance toward the front gate. His school followed the Chinese curriculum, So Father's Day activities were held on the third Sunday of June according to Chinese tradition. There wasn't much to it, just students meeting with their fathers and talking together. Earlier, he had asked Uncle Supakit, Chopper's father, to attend in place of his own. But this year, he was tired of pretending. Where would you like to go, Kanoo? Pom asked, looking confused. Nuengdiao turned around with an irritated expression. How long are you going to keep calling me Kanoo? Do you enjoy being my servant? In truth, Pom didn't want to. Circumstances had simply forced him into that role. Sorry. Nuengdiao sighed, exhaustion filling his voice. You can just call me Nueng. Today, I invited you out as a friend. I think Nuengdiao sounds better. Fine. Just don't add Kanoo. Where does Nuengdiao want to go? Pom asked quietly. Nuengdiao raised an eyebrow, lifted his hand, and flagged down an approaching taxi. Take us to the subway station. After they arrived, Nuengdiao chatted with his new friend as they walked. In reality, he passed this place every day, yet he had never once stood there. You've never taken the train before? So what? He answered with a frown. Chainen's son had only been in Bangkok for 2 weeks and had already ridden the train. Nuengdiao, on the other hand, had always been told by his mother that public transportation wasn't safe. Wherever he went, someone had to accompany him. Where are we going? Pom asked as they stood beneath the long station map. Nuengdiao had already found their destination. He searched for the station and bought 2 tickets while Pom quietly scanned the area with practiced caution. Seeing that, Nuengdiao said sarcastically, No one's coming to kill us. Pom ignored the comment and continued watching the crowd as though he were searching for someone. Nuengdiao tapped the ticket machine. Come here. Put the coins in. He eagerly dropped the coins into the slot. Even though he could have paid with a QR code, he wanted to experience paying with cash for the first time in his life. The stern-faced boy couldn't help smiling. What are you laughing at? Nueng pouted. Nothing. I'm just surprised. I didn't expect Nuengdiao to be this excited. Pom answered honestly. That only made Nuengdiao sigh. His whole life had been spent inside a tiny cage. I've never even been to 7-Eleven. After buying the tickets, Nuengdiao hurried ahead. Fortunately, Friday afternoon wasn't too crowded, and the station signs made everything easy to find. Nuengdiao slowed down. Don't act like my bodyguard. You're supposed to be my friend. You keep looking around so much that people will think you're planning to steal something. He complained, but Pom simply let the words pass through one ear and out the other. Nuengdiao had invited him to come as a friend. Yet somehow, they had ended up acting like master and servant again. Stop it. Nueng lightly nudged Pom with his elbow. The instant he made contact, Pom instinctively grabbed him, pulled him closer, and wrapped one arm around him while pressing his other hand against Nuengdiao's back. Nueng froze automatically. Are you human, or some kind of fighting robot? For some reason, Pom's face turned slightly red. Maybe it was because Nuengdiao was so close. Or maybe it was something else. Either way, the two of them were standing on the subway platform with countless people watching. Can you let go now? Nuengdiao coughed lightly. Pom immediately came back to his senses and released him. At that exact moment, the announcement sounded as the train approached the platform. Nuengdiao glanced toward the tracks while Pom lowered his eyes. Don't go around hugging people in public without warning, okay? Let's take a look around. The security guard spoke as the 2 boys stood in front of a half-finished building. Nearby stood an abandoned skyscraper. Pom looked up until the unfinished structure nearly disappeared from sight. Everything was bare except for exposed columns and concrete floors, giving the building a bleak, gray appearance. The guard looked at them curiously, unable to understand why they had come. Nuengdiao simply handed over his ID card and pointed to the number. Please don't tell anyone I was here. After thanking the guard, the 2 boys stepped inside. My father built this a long time ago, before the financial crisis. Nuengdiao spoke quietly as they entered. Fortunately, it was already late afternoon, and the area wasn't completely deserted. A gentle breeze drifted in from the nearby Chao Phraya River, rippling through the tall grass surrounding the abandoned construction site. Pom glanced around once before following Nuengdiao deeper into the empty building, his backpack hanging loosely from one shoulder. Why did you want to come here? The stairway was steep. There were no railings. The concrete was unfinished. Everything felt unstable. Pom couldn't help questioning their destination as Nuengdiao climbed ahead of him. You'll see. The 2 slowly climbed higher and higher. Nueng's school uniform was soaked with sweat, clinging to his slim frame. Isn't it beautiful? When they reached the top, Nuengdiao walked out onto the open balcony and sat about 2 meters from the unfinished edge of the building. He gazed across the river before looking back at Palm. The sunlight behind him blurred his figure until he looked like a dream suspended between reality and illusion. It is. Palm sat down beside him, leaving a respectful distance. Nung noticed the gap between them, but said nothing. Instead, he stared silently at the Chao Phraya River below. Time seemed to stand still. He rested his face against his folded arms as he watched trains pass and people continue with their lives. When my father was alive, he used to bring me here. Nung suddenly spoke. He didn't know why. The words had been trapped inside his chest for so long that they felt ready to explode. The scenery hadn't changed. Only he had. Once, this place had been filled with happy memories. Now, it only felt empty. Nuengdiao found it hard to breathe. It was as though someone had covered his mouth inside that closet again. He heard the gunshot. Then he heard himself crying. My father once told me to choose the floor and the corner I liked best. He said he'd buy this building and renovate it into apartments. He lowered his head. But before he could, he was shot and killed. Nuengdiao didn't understand why he was telling all this to someone he'd only known for 3 weeks. He hugged his knees, his heart aching with memories of his father and of the mother she used to be. I miss him so much. Palm remained silent for a while. Then he walked over, gently placed a hand on Nuengdiao's shoulder, and gave it a reassuring squeeze. I don't have my mother either. His deep, rough voice quietly filled the silence. Nuengdiao kept listening without turning around. My parents divorced a long time ago. After that, I lived with my dad while he worked in Bangkok. I called him a lot, but I could never get through. I don't even remember how long it's been. About 8 years, maybe. After I finished middle school, he stopped coming home. He just kept sending money. The timing. It matched almost exactly with the year Nuengdiao lost his own father. Palm had lost his father in a different way as well, after Chanin devoted himself entirely to Nuengdiao's family. Nuengdiao finally turned to look at him. Why didn't Uncle Chanin let you come here before? Palm was quiet for a moment. Dad said Bangkok was dangerous. From my first year of middle school, he taught me martial arts, self-defense, driving, and shooting. Palm had learned everything necessary to protect himself. Silence settled between them again. Neither of them cried. Yet both carried wounds their fathers had left behind. Each had become the person their parents expected them to be. Neither knew what kind of person they actually wanted to become. I never asked why. Palm continued. My dad just gave me money and told me to take care of myself. So, do you understand now? Nuengdiao smiled faintly. For the first time, he felt that he truly understood the pain Palm had hidden inside his heart. I think I do. Then let's be friends. Friends. I mean real friends. My father must already know I skipped school. It was already 4 o'clock when they returned to the fence. Where are you going next? A friend at the club told me they needed someone. They took a taxi to an old building nearby. As soon as they entered the parking area, Nuengdiao spotted Chanin's car. He immediately told the driver to circle around to the back so they could sneak inside unnoticed. Do you drink cocoa? Palm asked. After entering the lobby, they found a spacious hall where several couples danced slowly to gentle music. The atmosphere felt like stepping back 20 years in time. Most of the people there were older adults. I play the piano here. Nuengdiao led Palm toward the corner of the dance floor, hoping to avoid attracting attention. Why are you doing this? The club manager asked. You're already rich. We can't afford to pay you. I'm not doing it for the money. Nuengdiao answered simply. Before anyone could continue the conversation, a waiter wearing a bow tie approached and handed entrance tickets to both of them. Do you know how to dance? Palm immediately shook his head. His stiff posture made Nuengdiao smile. Chanin had taught him almost everything. Apparently, dancing wasn't one of them. Have you ever studied music? No. Ballet. I don't know how. Nuengdiao chuckled softly. This guy had probably spent his entire life learning nothing but how to fight. Come here. I'll teach you. Without waiting for permission, Nuengdiao grabbed Palm's arm and pulled him onto the dance floor. Palm resisted so awkwardly that Nung couldn't stop laughing. Teasing him was surprisingly entertaining. I don't want to. Palm answered firmly. Nuengdiao shot him a fierce glare. It's fine if I just watch from over there. That way I can keep people away from you. You said you were supposed to be my friend. What if the person standing next to me suddenly pulls out a gun? Palm was left speechless. Before he could think of another excuse, Nuengdiao had already dragged him into position. He raised Palm's left hand, took his right hand, then wrapped his free arm around Palm's back while placing Palm's other hand on his own shoulder. Don't worry about getting it right. Just focus on me. When I step left, you step back with your right. When I step back, you step forward. Just remember that. Don't think too much. Just move. Nuengdiao spoke calmly, already feeling the rhythm before the music even began. As the melody started, Palm became so nervous he almost forgot to breathe. Nuengdiao gently held his hand, guiding him little by little until all Palm's attention settled on the present. Palm inhaled slowly, then exhaled. The hand holding his own was cool, slightly damp, soft, and gradually he relaxed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nuengdiao whispered the rhythm. Their eyes met. Then they began to dance. Getting used to your new school? Nuengdiao asked quietly while they swayed together, shutting out the rest of the world. Even standing only an arm's length apart, the air between them somehow felt light. It's okay. I just transferred in, so I don't really have any friends yet. The two teenagers looked into each other's eyes. Time seemed to stop. Their feet continued moving gently with the music. I don't have any friends either. At school. Palm stayed silent. The song eventually ended. The other dancers bowed politely to their partners and walked away. Only the two of them remained standing there. Gathering his courage, Nuengdiao finally spoke the words he'd been holding inside. Come be my friend. Chapter 4. Hello everyone. I'm Panicorn Janaloy. You can call me Palm. Nuengdiao rested his chin on his hand as Chainen's son introduced himself at the front of the classroom. This was a special language class where students mainly studied English and Chinese. Nuengdiao's mother had arranged for Palm to be placed in the same class as her son so he could keep an eye on him. The only problem was that Nuengdiao studied Chinese while Palm knew absolutely none. Still, with Cantanya's influence, arranging it had been easy. Maybe he has good connections too. He just started here and already got into this class, Palm remarked casually. Nuengdiao remained silent, his gaze fixed on the window. Time passed slowly. He noticed subtle changes, though nothing too obvious. Palm's first day at school went smoothly because they had agreed that he would travel to and from school alone, ensuring no one would suspect anything. Where would you like to go, Kun? Nuengdiao said he wanted to visit the dance club he had gone to before. Unfortunately, it was only open on Thursdays and Fridays. On this Monday afternoon, the building was closed. The place looked gloomy, with not even a light on outside. You did that on purpose, didn't you? What do you mean, Kanoo? Your son. I don't understand. Why did your son suddenly appear here now, when it's only 1 year before I leave for university? His uncle is gone, and I don't want him living alone. Nuengdiao glanced at Chainen through the rearview mirror. The man was still as awkwardly honest as ever. He knew Chainen understood more than he let on. Tell me the truth. We've played this game long enough. Silence lingered for a moment before Chainen finally spoke. Now that Cantanya is being watched, so is the young master. There have also been threatening letters about taking over the market land from the residents. So you called Palm? I think the culprit is a student at this school. To protect me? They have help from outsiders. I can't protect you while you're at school. Every step you take is dangerous. Answer my question. Chainen fell silent, as though he had never seen this side of his young master before. Yes. That single word was enough. Nuengdiao thought of the boy who had danced with him the day before. So you brought Palm here, to be my bodyguard? Nuengdiao fell quiet. For a brief time, he had believed he understood everything. But after hearing Chainen's explanation, he realized he had been like a blind man guided by someone else's hand. It was as though his father had stood beside him in the darkness, telling him to arm himself, to become the son his father expected him to be. That's enough. He muttered the words, ending the conversation. The car continued down the road, accompanied by 2 escort vehicles not far behind. He couldn't help feeling that he and Palm were connected by some invisible thread, something neither of them had chosen but had been given anyway. What's wrong, Dad? As though sensing something was about to happen, Palm asked timidly. Chainen quickly assured him that nothing was wrong. Palm nodded slightly before leaving. Palm. Boss. The moment he heard that form of address, Nuengdiao's expression stiffened. He said nothing and simply walked ahead. So, what kind of Chinese have you learned? I don't know. I was just going to borrow books from the library and study by myself. Palm sounded worried. Chinese wasn't easy for beginners, especially for someone teaching himself. Most of the students in the language class spoke both Chinese and English fluently. Palm couldn't keep up with them. I'll teach you. The relationship between Nuengdiao and Palm developed smoothly. Perhaps because they had to pretend to be ordinary classmates, Nuengdiao often pulled Palm into his group under the excuse of doing homework. As expected, the two gradually became friends. Every day, Nuengdiao taught Palm basic Chinese. Palm learned slowly, and after long study sessions, he often went swimming to relieve the stress. They also continued their self-defense lessons every seventh day. Nuengdiao had never managed to defeat Palm. Once Palm stepped onto the training mat, he became a completely different person, strong, serious, and utterly devoted to his responsibility. It was as though he refused to lose to anyone. Nuengdiao never tried too hard to beat him. He knew his own physical limits and understood where he should focus instead. Panyu means friend. Panyu. No. The U uses the third tone. Nuengdiao corrected him. The two sat beside the swimming pool with a beginner's Chinese textbook and a writing notebook spread out in front of them. Following Nuengdiao's advice, Palm tried the third tone again, but still couldn't get it right. Just remember it's like the Thai Jadawa tone. Panyu. Panyu. Exactly. Why didn't you say it was like Jadawa from the beginning? That's much easier. The two bickered back and forth. They had grown so close that anyone watching would think they were genuine friends rather than master and bodyguard. There are some individual words with different pronunciations. Just learn the basics first. It won't be as noticeable in longer sentences. Panyu. Palm proudly wrote the word into his notebook. Who's Jean driving? Nuengdiao frowned. Palm looked completely confused and answered with the classic phrase every language learner knew. What be you, Ji? That means I don't know. Listen carefully. Nuengdiao smiled. Was sure and I to ping you ma? I'm your friend, right? That's right. And I xiang xin wa de hua ma? Do you trust me? Linger ji xin diao. I believe in Nuengdiao. Xiang wa zheng ming. Prove it. Zen me? How? Palm folded his notebook, then flashed a mischievous pout before walking toward the nearby swimming pool. Nuengdiao stared at him in surprise. There seemed to be a bright fire burning inside Palm's heart, neither dazzling nor fading. And I, Jinda? Are you serious? Palm laughed. He took off his clothes until only his swim shorts remained, then jumped into the pool. He disappeared beneath the surface before rising again, brushing the wet hair back from his forehead. Sunlight reflected across his face, revealing a smile that left Nuengdiao strangely puzzled. Sure da? Yes. Palm held out his hand. Nuengdiao looked at him, smiled, reached out, and accepted it before jumping into the water. Although he had grown up in a wealthy family with his own swimming pool, he had only gone swimming a handful of times. I can't swim. He admitted it without embarrassment. Palm simply nodded. Then Nuengdiao can hold my hand. Palm tightened his grip. For the first time, the endless depths beneath him no longer seemed frightening. Palm had become his support. Don't let go of my hand, okay? Their bodies drifted gently with the water. Nuengdiao held onto Palm's shoulder with one hand, while the other rested lightly around his waist. For a brief moment, it felt as though sweet music filled the air. Are you still afraid of the water? Nuengdiao quickly shook his head. Palm patiently explained how to hold his breath before diving beneath the surface to check the bottom of the pool. When he came back up, he took Nuengdiao's hand again. Hold your breath. Together, they sank beneath the water. The world below was even more beautiful than Nuengdiao had imagined. Light shimmered through the rippling water, scattering countless colors around them. He looked about excitedly. Palm's lips curved into a smile as bubbles escaped from his mouth. Even so, Nuengdiao could still read what he was saying. And I ye sure would upon you. You are my friend too. Palm. Nuengdiao called for the one person he trusted most at school. Standing in front of his locker, he tried to unlock it, but the key wouldn't turn. Someone had jammed chewing gum into the keyhole. Palm hurried over. Nuengdiao remembered the surveillance cameras he had asked the school to install. I'll go get someone, Palm said calmly, though fury boiled beneath his composed expression. No. Nuengdiao shook his head. I'll go myself. Or we'll go together. Otherwise, stay here and wait for me. He turned toward the security office. He had endured these pranks for long enough. This time, he was determined to find the person responsible. Calm down. Palm grabbed his arm, trying to stop him. Nuengdiao shot him a sharp glare before pulling away. Palm silently watched him disappear down the hallway. Nuengdiao. Those were the last words Palm managed to say before Nuengdiao pushed open the music club's door. His heart nearly stopped. Papers covered the entire room. Flyers plastered with pictures of him and his father, along with the words "son of cruelty," covered the walls, chairs, and musical instruments. The images had been edited so that his father's face appeared on a cartoon figure throwing money while repeatedly saying, "Do you know who my dad is?" "Bastards!" Nuengdiao shouted. The four boys hanging the posters immediately turned around. 3 wore masks. They clearly weren't students from the school. "Take it easy." Palm tried to stop him, but Nuengdiao charged forward before anyone could react. He grabbed one of them by the collar, only to be shoved away. Palm rushed in immediately. The other 3 surrounded them. Just as Palm moved to help Nuengdiao after he was pushed to the floor, another masked student kicked Palm's leg, knocking him off balance. Nuengdiao seized the opportunity to rip away one of the masks. Palm, the boy he had once almost considered a friend. The closest person to him besides Palm. A twisted smile spread across Palm's face. It was a look Nuengdiao had never seen before, as though he had been waiting for this moment all along. "Your dad is a disgusting bastard." The words made Nuengdiao freeze. Palm stood before him. The two faced each other. "Your father tricked the residents into signing contracts that surrendered their land. Your mother made them keep those contracts for 10 years, convincing people to build houses here. Then one day, she took everything away. Do you know how much that market cost? 30 million. My parents mortgaged our house just to invest in building that market so people could make a living." Palm's eyes were bloodshot. "And what happened? Because of your father stole it back after 30 years. Before my family even recovered our investment, your mother had already taken everything." Nuengdiao had never known the Pum family was connected to his family's land acquisition. He only knew they were wealthy real estate developers. Nothing more. "So what are you going to do to me?" Nuengdiao asked. His own eyes had turned red. His heart was overflowing with anger, humiliation, frustration, sadness, and emotions he couldn't even put into words. "Isn't it because your father was stupid enough to hand over the money?" Palm grabbed him by the collar. Nearby, Palm was still fighting the other 3. Defeating them wasn't difficult, but they refused to stay down. Palm leaned closer. "Your parents are scum, and you're just like them." Nuengdiao had reached his limit. He threw a punch with all his strength. It missed. Palm immediately countered. The taste of blood filled Nuengdiao's mouth as pain spread across his face. "So you're the one who likes stabbing people in the back." Nuengdiao sneered, spitting bloody saliva onto the floor. That was enough to ignite Palm completely. Remembering his self-defense lessons, Palm swept Nuengdiao's legs out from under him before preparing another attack. "Devil! You fatherless bastard!" Before Palm could strike again, his target suddenly disappeared. Someone stepped between them. Palm. He stood like an impenetrable shield. Palm stumbled backward. Before he could recover, Palm's fist crashed into his jaw with terrifying force. Within moments, blood dripped onto the floor. Nuengdiao looked around. The other 3 were already lying on the ground. Some had passed out. Others writhed in pain. Without thinking, Nuengdiao grabbed the hem of Palm's shirt. He didn't know what Palm was thinking, but the deep voice that rang through the room was filled with absolute determination. It sounded like an unbreakable command, like a vow. The fear inside Nuengdiao almost disappeared. "You're not even qualified to touch Nuengdiao." Chapter 5. Life without Palm is boring. To be more precise, life without Palm was especially boring after the fight. The security department intervened after finding the culprit in the room. Palm and the other 3 students were expelled and blacklisted by the school because of a mysterious force known as the Kaidakomati family. But it wasn't over yet. Palm's mother tried to resolve the issue and managed to let him remain at the school for another week. His mother's lawyer did everything he could to negotiate. In truth, Palm had done nothing wrong. The surveillance footage clearly showed that he had only been protecting his friend. However, Palm's parents deliberately provoked the situation, repeatedly accusing and insulting them in an attempt to force Palm out of school. In the end, though, the matter was resolved. Nuengdiao could still hear Palm swimming every night, but he didn't dare go outside to see him. "Is Mom okay?" One morning after Palm was expelled, the atmosphere at home changed. His mother started coming home earlier and on time. At first, he thought she was angry with him, but perhaps he was wrong. The small world of their family was simply too complicated. "I'm okay." Uncle Chanin said someone has been watching you. She immediately turned toward the driver, standing quietly in the corner of the room. He gave a slight shake of his head, but she answered anyway. Some of them have stopped. Some haven't. Finally, she replied in a weary voice. Who do you think is behind it? Nuengdiao silently shook his head while wiping his mouth with a towel. How's Chopper at school? Are you two still spending time together? Why are you asking? Did something happen? Answer me first. It's normal. We're in different classes, so we don't talk much. Nuengdiao remembered the way Chopper had stared at Ben. Should he tell his mother? I want to hand over the Phuwin casino to Supakit. He said he wants to manage some of the family's businesses. It's far away, and I can't keep traveling back and forth. She explained that the family owned several casinos in Cambodia. They generated enormous profits, but managing them was exhausting. That was only natural for a business operating in the shadows. Nuengdiao was about to ask another question, but his mother interrupted him. She stood up to leave for work and instructed Chanin to keep an eye on Nuengdiao while Palm was away from school. Why do you look so tense? Ben was the first to speak when Nuengdiao arrived at school. Instead of going straight to class, Nuengdiao headed to the music room. There, he discovered that Ben had quietly removed every cursed note that had been stuck to him, as though nothing had happened. He envied Ben's smile. Ben always looked as though life itself loved him. Nuengdiao wished he could have been born as an ordinary person, free from expectations and the crushing pressure of his family's world. This world is too heavy. Nuengdiao sighed. He was too exhausted to get close to anyone, much less play the piano or do anything else. He put on his headphones, started some music, and escaped into a world where no one could bother him. If it's too heavy, let me carry it with you. The music disappeared from Nuengdiao's ears. Ben leaned closer and removed one side of the headphones. The two of them sat together on the stage. Ben's smile was gentle yet unwavering. Nuengdiao turned to look at him, and all the emotions he had been holding back surged to the surface. Can I lean on you? Of course. Ben smiled. 3, 2, 1. As Ben counted down, he reached over at the final second and rested his head against Nuengdiao's shoulder. The touch was unexpectedly soft amidst the cruelty of life. It was a feeling Nuengdiao had never experienced before. It had been so long since he had truly leaned on someone. He couldn't stop the tears. Everything in his world seemed to be falling apart. Images flashed through his mind. Being called the son of a villain, his father telling him he loved him, his mother's growing distance, fists smashing into his face until his mouth filled with blood, the pain spreading through his body, and the guilt of dragging Palm into this endless spiral. The burden was crushing someone who had only just turned 18. Ben didn't know what else to do except gently hold his hand. Nuengdiao had barely ever been hugged in his life. The moment Ben pulled him into his arms, he broke down completely. Ben simply stroked his hair, telling him not to worry. At that moment, Nuengdiao realized how desperately he had longed for someone's embrace. You still have me. It was reassurance he had never received before. Those words hadn't come from his parents or anyone else. They came from Ben. Nuengdiao couldn't remember how long he stayed there, borrowing Ben's shoulder while exposing the miserable parts of his life. Time became impossible to measure. All he could do was whisper sincerely, "Thank you." I'm sorry. Late that night, Nuengdiao sat beside the swimming pool. Palm was swimming again without telling his father. Nuengdiao felt sorry for him. If Palm had never come here, perhaps he would have lived a much happier life. At the very least, he wouldn't have been forced to shoulder the responsibility of protecting Nuengdiao. Nuengdiao. The moment Palm saw him, he quickly swam back to the edge of the pool. His expression was troubled. I'm sorry. For what? It was because of me that you got beaten. If I'd gotten there faster, you wouldn't have been hurt. Guilt filled Palm's face. So that's why you've been avoiding me for a week. If I hadn't panicked and called everyone over, none of this would have happened. I'm fine. Nuengdiao. Stop blaming yourself. I was the one who rushed into things. If I'd listened to you from the beginning, none of it would have happened. Are you really okay? I am. Neither of us is completely innocent. Palm fell silent for a moment before finally smiling. Could this be what having a true friend felt like? Deep down, Nuengdiao prayed that Palm would stay beside him because of genuine friendship, not responsibility or social status. Then something occurred to him. Have you ever had a best friend? I used to. We lost contact. Palm answered honestly. What about you? Have you ever had a boyfriend? No. Palm froze. clearly caught off guard by the question. Seeing his reaction, Nuengdiao burst into laughter. Palm sighed, realizing he'd just been teased. I know you're straight. So why did you ask? No reason. Nuengdiao hesitated before continuing. I like boys. I want to try dating someone at school. It's okay to tell you that, isn't it? Palm's emotions became chaotic. His brows lowered slightly before he finally spoke. Is it Ben? How did you know? He's the only person you're close to. I just didn't expect it to become this. His voice sounded unusually hoarse. Have you told anyone else? No. You're the first person I've told. Nuengdiao smiled. And you're not allowed to tell my mother. You're my friend. Don't betray me. I won't. It was an unquestionable promise. Nuengdiao truly considered Palm his friend. He wanted Palm to protect this secret. I swear. Palm let everything between Nuengdiao and Ben develop naturally. Ben had never directly admitted his feelings, but Palm could already see them. So he decided to let things unfold. At the very least, Nuengdiao deserved one chance to live life the way he wanted. Ben and Nuengdiao often met during 5th and 6th period at the dance club. Whenever music filled the room, Palm quietly stayed in the background. Nuengdiao dreamed of becoming a musician. Even though he knew his technique still wasn't perfect, he wanted music to become his lifelong career. He wanted to continue studying it seriously. The only obstacle standing in his way was his mother. She would never allow him to pursue anything except inheriting what his father had left behind. You know, you only smile when you're playing the piano. One evening after changing clothes, Ben handed him a glass of water. Across the hall, Palm was chatting with a girl Nuengdiao often saw at the dance club. The two of them seemed surprisingly close. Ben's voice pulled Nuengdiao back to reality. I guess you're right. Nuengdiao laughed softly. I ran into Chopper the other day. Ben's expression remained calm. He asked if we were dating. There was unmistakable happiness shining in his eyes. So, what did you tell him? Nuengdiao asked. Ben simply hummed. Do, re mi fa sol, side do. It was only a melody. Yet the moment Nuengdiao heard it, he instinctively formed the harmony in his mind. For the first time, they understood each other without words, no matter what their relationship was. Every year, the school celebrated its anniversary with a lavish banquet. The lobby was transformed into an elegant reception hall, and alumni were invited back free of charge. The senior and junior students helped create videos and performances to entertain the guests. Since everyone at the school paid enormous tuition fees, very few students were willing to perform. Want to play the background music? Ben asked while adjusting the piano's sound system behind the stage. Why waste time using recordings? Nuengdiao smiled. As time passed, he and Ben had grown even closer. Tonight, dressed in suits, they pretended to be musicians performing quietly behind the scenes. Hidden in the shadows, Nuengdiao communicated with the world through music. All right, I'll keep it soft. Ben gestured toward him. Wearing a perfectly tailored suit, he looked like a prince in a secret opera house. This performance brought Nuengdiao closer than ever to his dream of becoming a musician. Even if no one could know it, it still meant everything to him. Okay. His fingers settled gently on the piano keys. In that dreamlike moment, he chose an old Chinese song called Dream of the Lake Deep. Its melody was timeless. Yesterday's story flowed away like water to the east. No matter how hard I try, I cannot hold it back. So many worries fill my heart. The music gave Nuengdiao freedom. For once, the name Kaida Kulmati no longer weighed upon him. At that moment, he was simply a young man overflowing with passion instead of burdens. The more water I scoop away, the more it flows. The higher I raise my cup to drown my sorrow, the deeper that sorrow becomes. Nuengdiao glanced toward Palm. Palm followed him everywhere, always the faithful bodyguard. Ben remained beside the piano. The smile on Ben's face was strangely beautiful, like an unfinished masterpiece painted by an artist. 2 bitter words of love. Should I ask? Or pretend not to know? The more I understand, the harder it becomes to understand enough. The performance stopped as someone quietly sat beside him. Ben chose that exact moment to start the pre-recorded background music. The two of them sat together on the long piano bench. Do, re mi fa sol, side do. No matter what our relationship is. Ben smiled. So, I've been wondering, what kind of relationship do we have? So what do you want us to be? Nuengdiao raised an eyebrow, smiling. Ben leaned closer. His breath carried warmth, life itself. He was real. Not a dream. Not an illusion. Their foreheads nearly touched. Then their lips met gently. The distance between them disappeared. Nuengdiao felt the unbearable weight on his shoulders finally lifting. Ben carried that heavy world with quiet simplicity. The music continued. Whether reality or a dream, lovers could not stay together forever. Even memories eventually drifted apart. Ben smiled at him. Heavy footsteps echoed in the distance. Someone was approaching, only an arm's length away. They immediately pulled apart and turned toward the sound. The room remained empty. The music continued to play. Only one thing had changed. A young man stood there, wearing a worried expression. Nuengdiao frowned. Palm quickly scanned every possible entrance and exit. The exhaustion in his eyes remained. In a low, husky voice, he said, "Nuengdiao, there's a camera here." Chapter 6. Nuengdiao went to school as usual. It had been some time since the anniversary. He met Chopper, his cousin, standing in the parking lot. Palm hadn't arrived yet because he had taken the bus, so he would probably be late for the flag-raising ceremony. Nuengdiao simply said goodbye to Chanin and started walking inside. Nueng, go home first. The tension in Chopper's voice immediately made him suspicious. Why should I go home? Please, just go back. Chopper's expression was full of worry and desperation, but he wouldn't explain what had happened. What happened? Is someone watching? It's not that. Just go home. Now. Instead of leaving, Nuengdiao glanced toward the walkway leading to the school building. Sheets of paper had been plastered everywhere. There was barely any wall left uncovered. Groups of students stood around staring at them. As he looked up, he caught the eyes of several students watching him, whispering loudly among themselves. "Chopper, what's going on?" His cousin tried to stop him, but the more Chopper blocked his way, the more determined Nuengdiao became. He walked over and tore one of the papers from the wall. "I'm a gangster, but my son is a gay man." The flyers weren't just in the music building. They lined the path into the school and had probably been spread throughout the entire campus. But it wasn't the words that stole Nuengdiao's breath. It was the blurry photograph beside them. Though enlarged, it was still unmistakable. It was a picture of Nuengdiao and Ben kissing in the piano room behind the stage. Nuengdiao immediately opened Facebook to message Ben. Before he could tap the chat window, a video appeared in his feed. It had been posted publicly by Palm. Even though Nuengdiao had already unfriended him, mutual friends had liked the post, causing it to appear on his timeline. At first, he intended to scroll past it. Then he saw Ben's face. He tapped the video. "Nuengdiao, don't." Chopper tried to stop him, but it was already too late. Who's the man? Or does anyone who sleeps with you automatically become your wife? Boos and laughter erupted from the video. Ben kept trying to hide while the bullies chased after him. Several faces were out of frame, but Ben could clearly be seen trying to cover his face as he ran. "You like getting screwed that much? What's it like being someone's meat? Come with me. You can suck me down here." Every word tightened Nuengdiao's chest until he could barely breathe. Chopper stood in front of him with a pained expression. He reached out, wanting to turn the video off, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Nuengdiao's hands trembled with rage. Then the next words shattered his heart. "Nuengdiao kissed me first. Not me. I'm not gay." The mockery continued around Ben. Nuengdiao couldn't hear anything after that. Ben had already escaped the frame. Even Chopper standing beside him seemed impossibly distant. Tears blurred his vision. His chest turned cold with disappointment. The person he had trusted, the person to whom he had given his heart, had said those words. "Nuengdiao." Chopper's voice finally broke through. He turned to look at his cousin. "Ben's father is a military officer. He's homophobic. I tried talking to him, but Ben's having a terrible time right now. His dad found out, and he's been locked inside the house." Nuengdiao's frozen mind slowly registered Chopper's words. Back at home, he would have been able to piece everything together. Now, he couldn't think at all. "Mom." The words slipped from his lips. His legs suddenly gave out beneath him. The bell announcing the flag-raising ceremony rang across the campus, reminding everyone to line up. But Nuengdiao realized. He had nowhere to go. Not home. Not school. Not even the music club. How disappointed would his mother be? Her only heir. Not the son she wanted. The son she had raised. Who loved another man. "Nuengdiao." Chopper called him again, but his mind had gone completely blank. He turned and walked away instead. The wind rushed past his face as his heart searched desperately for somewhere it could finally rest. He climbed over the fence at gate 6. Without looking back, Nuengdiao stood quietly at the boundary between life and death. The rooftop was empty. Only the tips of his toes remained on solid ground. One more step, and everything would be over. He looked up at the sky. His foot shifted slightly. Just one step. You take one more step, and I'll jump. He spoke without turning around. He had already heard someone racing up the stairs, breathing heavily. He knew exactly who it was. Pom wanted to pull him back, but the place where Nuengdiao stood was too dangerous. If Pom rushed him, everything would end. Nuengdiao, come down. Nuengdiao turned to look at him. Pom's face was filled with fear. Do you think jumping hurts? It does. I watched a documentary once. They said the air pressure makes people lose consciousness before they hit the ground. His expression remained strangely calm, completely different from Pom's panicked face. But if you realize you don't really want to die, you'll regret it. What I want to know is, what made you decide to do this? His words echoed across the empty rooftop. The two boys stood only an arm's length apart. You knew I followed you here? I knew. I just don't understand why you did this. Suddenly, Nuengdiao thought about friendship. Was Pom really his friend? Or was this only part of his responsibility? I don't want to die. I just want to disappear. Do you understand? Pom said nothing. Only the gentle breeze answered. If I die, I'll just become an ungrateful son in my mother's eyes. I don't want to die. I just want to disappear. I want to disappear so completely that it's as though I never existed. No happiness. No sadness. Nothing. His empty eyes stared into the distance. Have you ever felt like that, Pom? The feeling that nothing in the world can keep you here anymore. That you don't belong anywhere. That nothing in this world has anything to do with you. Pom slowly reached out his hand. But, you still have me. His deep voice echoed through Nuengdiao's heart. They had only been friends for a few months. Yet there was something hidden deep inside Pom's heart. Was it because of the family? If not for his duty, would Pom still stand beside him like this? You? Is that because you're really my friend? Or because it's your responsibility? Nuengdiao turned back toward the empty sky. Loneliness embraced him once again. There would only be a moment of pain, then endless emptiness. Don't come any closer. When he heard Pom take another step, he spoke softly. Tears filled his eyes. I came here because you're my friend, not because of my duty. Pom wrapped both arms around him from behind. He held him tightly against his chest and gently pulled him away from the edge. Nuengdiao's legs gave out completely. He couldn't stand anymore. So he leaned against Pom's body, borrowing his strength, sharing the unbearable weight on his shoulders. If your heart is still beating, then so is mine. We'll live together. And if we have to, we'll die together. Is that enough to prove I'm not doing this because it's my responsibility? Pom, Nuengdiao sobbed, like someone lost forever in an endless desert. Day after day, trapped inside a world with no escape. I'm a useless person. I don't know where to go. I don't know what I'm supposed to do every day. But because of you, I've kept living. I want you to know, you're not alone. There will always be someone willing to hold your hand when you fall. Pom's hands had become rough from countless fights. Now those same hands gently stroked Nuengdiao's back, giving him the warmth he had longed for all his life. For a brief moment, they reminded him of his father. The father who had died when he was 10 years old. Warm, gentle, strong. Pom, my mother, I don't know. But if I were you, I'd talk to her before deciding anything. If you want to go back, I'll go back with you. I won't say anything to Cantanya. Pom, you're only doing this because it's your duty, aren't you? No one risks their life for someone else because of a mission. Pom tightened his embrace, as though he wanted to shelter Nuengdiao inside his heart, like an unshakable wall that would never collapse. You only have one friend, and I only have one friend. You, Nuengdiao. It was nearly noon by the time they returned home. They had stayed on the rooftop much longer than either of them had realized. By the time they came downstairs, the morning sun had already begun giving way to the afternoon. Nuengdiao. The moment he stepped into the living room, his mother hurried toward him. Chanin stood nearby, visibly relieved. There were several other people in the room as well, but once Nuengdiao arrived, they quietly excused themselves. Chanin also started to leave. Only Pom remained. Because Nuengdiao had grabbed the hem of his shirt, Pom bowed respectfully and silently took Chanin's place. Where did you go? I was so worried. I went for a walk. His mother sighed with relief and wrapped him tightly in her arms. She asked nothing more, even though countless questions were clearly buried in her heart. Don't disappear like that again. I was terrified. Did you see them? Nuengdiao looked at Palm before giving his mother a faint smile. The pictures? He nodded. I saw them. She answered calmly. The school told me a security guard stole the images from the surveillance system. The principal has already fired him. So, I know everything. Nuengdiao slowly pulled away from her embrace. Are you angry with me? His voice caught in his throat. When you found out, tears welled up again. He knew exactly how much she had sacrificed. She had lost her husband. She had placed all her hopes on him. How could she not be devastated? Angry. She smiled. I'm angry that my son loves playing the piano but sneaks behind the stage instead of performing properly. Mom, if Nuengdiao likes music so much, why didn't you tell me? I would have found you the best teacher. I would have helped you become a wonderful musician. He froze. For just a moment. She became the same mother she had always been. The woman who had protected his dreams. The woman who had chased away every monster in his life. I meant, the kissing. What about it? She laughed as though it were nothing. But the person I kissed was a boy. He said it almost breathlessly. She leaned close and whispered into his ear. I've kissed a woman before. Mom. He stared at her in shock. She simply smiled and gently rubbed his head. That familiar touch overflowed with the love he had missed for so long. Have you ever wondered why your father and I had you so late? We got married when we were 24. But I didn't give birth until your father was 31. He had never thought about that before. We knew it wouldn't be easy. Our family isn't exactly clean. If we had a child, that child would inherit everything. So your father wanted to make sure of only one thing, that our child would inherit the family. Other than that, we never wanted to force you to become someone you weren't. She smiled again. Your father was very traditional. Before we even had children, he had already planned everything. How many children? What gender? What kind of person they'd become? When they'd marry? I told him children aren't dolls that you can shape however you want. If he couldn't accept that, then we shouldn't have children at all. So we waited another 10 years. She continued softly. I know being the heir to this family isn't easy. But when you grow up, I only ask that you help take care of the family business. You're all I have left. As for everything else, I won't force you. Who you love, what you want to do, I won't stop you. That's enough for me. Nuengdiao cried again. But these tears were different. They weren't born from despair. They were freedom. Not complete freedom, but enough for him to spread his wings, just a little. He buried himself in his mother's embrace. He hadn't felt this warmth in such a long time. Thank you so much, Mom. Chapter 7. Ben hadn't been to school since that day. Chopper had said that Ben's father was a high-ranking military officer with an excellent reputation. Ben had been confined to his home inside the barracks and ordered to undergo an examination. If he hadn't insisted that Nuengdiao was the one who kissed him first, he might have been transferred to a military school to restore his manliness. Nuengdiao sympathized with him, especially since he had no way to contact Ben. He had also taken a week off from school. As long as his mother understood him, he wasn't afraid of the judgmental looks from the people at school. However, she firmly demanded that the school identify the person who had recorded the video and punish them according to school regulations. Nuengdiao had no choice but to wait until things settled down before returning, if only to give his mother some peace of mind. As for Palm, he continued going to school as usual while teaching himself. I'm going to the dance club today. After several days of doing nothing, Thursday finally arrived. Nuengdiao turned to the driver and told him that he and Palm would meet there later that afternoon. Even though Ben was no longer there, he still wanted to go. But Cantania ordered Kanoo not to go out. I already told my mother I wanted to play the piano there, and she agreed. He was a little suspicious of Chanin's reaction. Where's my mother? The man hesitated. So Nuengdiao asked again. Uncle Chanin, where's my mother? Cantania went to the hotel in Krabi. There were protests there, so she had to go negotiate. But wasn't she just dealing with something else? Last time it was in Phuket. People there were protesting because they opposed clearing forest land to build a liquor store. Is there anything else I don't know? It seemed his mother carried countless heavy burdens without ever telling him. And all he'd done was give her another headache. Kanoo, I think you should be more careful, Chanin said seriously. We've been attacked repeatedly like this. It's possible there are people on the inside stirring everyone up. Who? Chanin could only shake his head helplessly. Nuengdiao sighed quietly. It was almost time, so he asked Chanin to drive him to the club. Although he was happy to be playing the piano again, his heart was still weighed down with too many thoughts. He wanted someone to confide in, so he sat alone in the performance room, waiting for his friend to arrive. Palm. The voice wasn't Nuengdiao's. The curtains separating the lounge from the hallway fluttered, though the door remained open, allowing voices from outside to drift in. It was the voice of a girl he didn't recognize. Maki. Then Palm called her name. I'm so glad I finally got to see you. It's almost my birthday. Would you come? Her teasing voice was bright and cheerful. Unable to suppress his curiosity, Nuengdiao quietly stood and moved to the edge of the doorway. Through the narrow gap, he saw a young man and a young woman standing close together. He immediately recognized her. He had only heard her name a few times before, but she was Maki, the granddaughter of the club's owner. Seeing Palm talking to her was one thing. Seeing them standing so close together was another. I don't know if I'll be free that day. Palm, take a break for once. Surely your employer isn't that unreasonable. Nuengdiao stared at his own reflection in the glass. Was he really such an unreasonable master? If Palm asked for a day off to spend with this girl, would he agree? My work doesn't have fixed hours. I don't even know how to ask for leave. You should relax a little. Don't be so serious. Her sweet laughter echoed through the hallway. Hidden in the shadows, Nuengdiao watched her smiling face. Maki really suited Palm. She was cheerful, outgoing, and full of life. She wasn't extraordinarily beautiful, but she had an innocent, straightforward charm. She radiated an energy he had never seen in himself. I like you, Palm. Don't answer right away. Just listen to what I have to say. I don't. Nuengdiao's heart stopped. The word echoed endlessly in his mind. Palm was interested in someone else. Why hadn't he told him? Hadn't Nuengdiao told Palm about Ben? No. I have to say it. Maki's voice became more serious. I'm not joking anymore. I like you. More than a friend. Nuengdiao almost stopped breathing. Part of him wanted Palm to answer. Another part was terrified. If Palm started dating someone, would Nuengdiao still be his only friend? Would they even remain friends? And me? Palm sounded completely at a loss. Hidden in the darkness, Nuengdiao wore the same confused expression. Thoughts spun wildly through his mind. He didn't know what to call this feeling. He only knew that he didn't want to give Palm to anyone. Then a phone rang, interrupting everything. Palm immediately excused himself, saying he had to answer his employer's call. Maki couldn't hide her disappointment. Nuengdiao let out a quiet sigh of relief and hurried back to his seat, as though nothing had happened. His hand remained tightly wrapped around the phone in his pocket. He had deliberately interrupted Palm's moment, and he still didn't understand why. What's wrong, Nuengdiao? The voice made him uncomfortable. After finishing work, everyone at the club gathered for a small party. Nuengdiao sat alone in a quiet corner, picked up a bottle of wine, and poured himself a glass. He wondered why people enjoyed drinking so much. What was so good about it? Why are you asking? Just leave me alone. Nuengdiao is drunk. I'm not drunk. Only drunk people say they're not drunk. So, are you drunk? No. Then, that means you are. Nuengdiao opened his mouth to argue. His emotions were tangled beyond recognition. Was he upset because Palm hadn't told him about Maki? Or was it something else entirely? This is your first time drinking, isn't it? Why did Palm sound like he was talking to a child? I said, leave me alone. His reply was short and full of sarcasm. Nuengdiao looked at Palm with reddened eyes. He couldn't explain the chaos inside his head. Honestly, he was afraid of the answer. Because once he understood it, he wouldn't be able to accept it. Sorry, I'm the one who should apologize. Nuengdiao smiled bitterly into his wine glass, as though laughing at himself. Is it difficult taking care of someone like me? Chanin ordered you to risk your life for me. What can you do? Palm gently shook his head. He didn't know what to say. Idiot, Nuengdiao muttered. If you just let me die, it'd all be over. You'd finally be free. You could go wherever you wanted, do whatever you wanted, be with whoever you wanted. Palm immediately looked up and met his eyes. Only then did Nuengdiao realize what he'd accidentally said. He quickly turned away. What do you mean, Nuengdiao? Nothing. If this is about Maki. I said it's nothing. He slammed his hand onto the table. The smell of alcohol made him feel sick. The glass tipped over, splashing wine across Palm's face. Feeling strangely empty, Nuengdiao stood and walked toward the bar. Palm reached out to stop him, But Nuengdiao shoved his hand away. Nuengdiao, stop making trouble. Who are you to order me around? When had he inherited his family's arrogance? The very arrogance everyone at school hated him for. Rather, the smile curling at the corner of his lips was enough to crush the confidence of the person standing before him. I'm sorry. Pom apologized again. The words only irritated Nuengdiao even more. Pom always gave in without complaint. Nuengdiao slowly walked toward the counter to buy more alcohol. No matter how far he went, Pom would never leave. You're drunk. Let's go home. Stay away. A rough voice suddenly interrupted them. Nuengdiao rubbed his eyes. 3 large men with hostile expressions stood nearby. His vision blurred from the alcohol, but he could still make out the situation. I lost my land because of your father, and now you've got the nerve to yell at me? Insolent brat. How dare you talk to me like that? One of the men shoved Nuengdiao. He staggered backward. A hand immediately caught him. Pom's eyes were burning with anger. You want trouble? Each word came out cold and forceful. Although Pom continued trying to reason with them, Nuengdiao's mind had already become clouded. He looked just like the day he'd beaten Pom to protect him. I don't need your help. Nuengdiao tried to pull away, but he barely had the strength to stand. His words slurred together. You can curse me all you want, but I have to deal with this first. Pom spoke calmly. Those words only made Nuengdiao's heart hurt even more. Responsibility. Was that all it was? Pom liked women. Being with Maki was the right choice. How much longer would he stay by Nuengdiao's side? Sit here. Pom helped him into a chair. From his hazy seat, Nuengdiao watched the boy face the dangerous situation alone. Your friend's mouth is filthy. The 3 thugs surrounded Pom. He was only answering what you said first. What? You're blaming us. One of them charged forward. Pom sidestepped him smoothly. The punch aimed at him became a clean counterattack. His fist slammed into the man's jaw. Then Pom drove his elbow into him and followed with another punch that sent the thug crashing face first onto the floor. You're pretty good. Another man rushed in. Pom turned to dodge him, but the third attacker leaped forward with a kick. Nuengdiao cried out instinctively, unable to do anything. One of the men smashed a bottle against the edge of a table. Pom knocked another attacker to the ground, leaving only the man holding the jagged bottle. Nuengdiao tried to warn him. His body refused to cooperate. Instead of attacking Pom, the man lunged toward Nuengdiao. Nuengdiao tried to run. His legs barely moved before he collapsed onto the floor. As he squeezed his eyes shut, he heard Pom shout. The last thing he saw was the broken bottle hurtling toward him. The smell of blood filled the air. But there was no pain. He slowly opened his eyes. Pom had stepped in front of him. Blood streamed from Pom's right shoulder, soaking his shirt crimson. Nuengdiao stared at him. So this is what slaves are supposed to do, isn't it? Why didn't you just let me die? Then you could go wherever you wanted. Do you really like being my servant that much? The words poured out of him, making the burning in his chest even worse. The alcohol still clouded his mind, but he could clearly see the sadness in Pom's eyes. Pom looked utterly disappointed. Without another word, he turned away. Then Pom drew his gun. Nuengdiao hadn't even known he was carrying one. The instant the gun appeared, the entire atmosphere changed. The man holding the broken bottle immediately loosened his grip, letting it fall to the floor. Pom walked over to Nuengdiao, placed the gun in one hand, then swung the weapon into the attacker's face, knocking him flat onto the ground. Let's go home, Pom said. He tried to help Nuengdiao stand, but it was impossible. In the end, Pom simply lifted him into his arms. Silence settled over them. The longer Nuengdiao looked at him, the more guilty he felt. Pom's wound made bitterness spread through his chest. Because of me. It's all because of me. Kano, we'll head home first. My father will come later to handle the compensation. Kano. Pom hadn't called him that in a long time. Nuengdiao couldn't remember when Chanin had opened the car door. Pom helped him into the back seat. All he could hear was Pom's faint, indistinct voice. Pom didn't get into the car. He remained standing outside. Silence surrounded them. Nuengdiao had spent much of his life in silence. But never had silence made him feel guilt as deeply as it did now. Pom's bloodstained shirt kept replaying in his mind. He knew every cruel thing he'd said, every hateful word. He remembered them all. Each one dug deeper into a heart already full of holes. Yet with countless emotions swirling inside him, and his mind clouded by alcohol for the first time, the words he truly wanted to say never reached his lips. Take Kanoa home. Where are you going? Chainin climbed into the driver's seat and answered calmly. Pom has to go to the hospital to treat his wound first. Once that's done, I'll bring him home.